All right, today on the Agent War Room podcast, we've got Isaac, and Isaac's going to give us a little introduction, his background, and really get to know him at a personal level. As you know, there's millions of podcasts out there, and a lot of them just give you theory, and it's just a lot of talk about what other teams do. But here on the Agent War Room podcast, we want to deliver you actionable information so you can actually get off the podcast, get to your computer, get working, and get results. Through Isaac's journey, he did so much of that. And I'm super excited to have him really, just kind of pull back the curtain so you could get to know him at a whole new level. So, Isaac, co founder here of Agent War Room, super excited to really hear your story today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm excited because I think my story can talk to a lot of people, right? I got started in a different career entirely. It had nothing to do with real estate, right? I was in software sales and stuff like that, but I was selling software to real estate agents and brokers. And then that company got acquired by Showing Time, who we all know now is owned by Zillow. But in that, and when we got when the acquisition happened, I had been working with real estate agents, so I wanted to figure out what that was all about, right? And I stumbled across some stuff, ended up on Bigger Pockets, then decided, you know what, I can do this bird dogging and wholesaling thing. I'm going to figure this out, and started doing it. Had no idea what I was doing. But started going to investor meetings, and then someone actually paid me to introduce them to a seller one time, and I was like, okay, there's something here. Then I started doing wholesaling. Then I became an acquisitions person for that. So he's actually a brain surgeon here in Southern California who pulled a bunch of money together with his buddies and would go out and buy properties. And they were like, well, you seem to have a knack for this. So why don't you keep going? I did that for a while. And then I worked for another investment company. And then that was about 2015 when people were like, no, I don't want your cash offer. And I have a job now. So I'd prefer not to sell my house, or I'm not underwater anymore, or upside down on my mortgage. And so there's a lot of stuff that happened. And I went to actually an old client of ours from the software company, a buddy named Jeremiah. You know him really well.
Mhm.
And he goes, dude, you got to get your license. Right. And so as I was working on my license, because he said, you already know the core thing that people win in real estate, how to find and talk to motivated homeowners. Like you found that's all you need, dude. So now go get your license because you're working with one arm tied behind your back. Because right now, all you're doing is offering them a cash offer from your investors. You're not offering them to list it for market value. And that's what a lot of people want now. So it kind of all became clear. I went into real estate, got into that, then quickly got into leadership with Jeremiah and Chris Heller and started recruiting like crazy. We built that office. I mean, about just over 200 agents, up to 550 agents in about 3 or 4 years. Last year I was there. Last full year I was there was 1.37 billion in sales, which was great. And we did a lot of that there. And what I really learned there was recruiting and training and managing agents, right? How to help them accomplish their goals, because I was also the productivity coach for a while. So I did a lot of stuff in there that I learned. And then from there, I went and partnered up with a buddy of ours, Dan, out in San Diego, to build his team. We grew that team. There was 9 agents on it when I joined. We recruited it. He was a great visionary, knew a lot of stuff where he wanted to go, and he needed partners, right? Like me and Laura, to really come in and help execute on that plan day to day while he was out there going out and learning. And so that was a incredible ride. We went from 9 to 90 agents. We became number one in the world at EXP Realty for several years in volume sold. And so, got to always put that out there, right? People are like, no, I sold more units. Yeah, like 2 teams sold more units, but we had more volume. So there it is.
Well,
Um,
volume equals commissions, doesn't it?
exactly. I wasn't going to go there, but I'm just
You know,
saying,
I
like,
hey, that's the way I see it, so I'm all about more volume. You can do as many units as you want. I mean, I wanna do more units too, don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but
Well, and you know what's interesting about that? I know we're not done with my little intro, but the segue real quickly for that is when you do a lot of units, you end up getting more volume anyways, right? Because the more that just have a bigger database of people that you're working with, and two things happen. One is they introduce you to more people, and those people generally will buy houses. But then as the market increases in value, your person that bought a median priced home at 550,000, 8 years later is now selling $1 million house with you. as long as you're staying in touch. So you can increase your price point. A lot of people, how do I increase my price point? Sell a lot of houses, and over time, you will increase your price point. Right. Anyways, so from there, decided I moved out of the area and moved out of the area. So that didn't make any more sense. I started thinking about, hey, I'm going to start another team, started looking across different platforms, ended up in partnership with everybody in the agent war room. And now I run a mortgage team, have a real estate team with a business partner as well. And so that's really the focus is building out the team and really crushing the ancillary side by partnering up with agents that I don't even have to like move over to my team to still help them crush business by, hey, I can share my secrets now because just use me as your lender, right? Like, or use my team. I'm not even a licensed mortgage expert, right? I just help the biz dev side and participate in the back end. So it's pretty fun stuff. But yeah, man, that's where I'm at. I love real estate. It's the only thing I truly have ever been passionate about after I got, out of wrestling as a kid. So this is such a fulfilling thing for me to be part of Agent War Room, partner with you, partner with Cindy and everybody else on the platform, because it's really a place where I can grow, I can learn, and also share the things that I've learned and gone through. And one of the things that I think is really important about how you've structured this podcast, man, and held us accountable to it is no fluff. What do we really get? And back in 2020, we, the partners I was with back in the day, we launched like a playbook series. And one of the things that I loved about it, and we got lots of feedback about it, and then we deviated after a while, and then who knows? But anyways, was hey, it's just actionable, right? We did an ISA playbook, for example. That was what launched that whole entire like playbook series. And
Mhm.
the reason why it was so popular is because 2 to 3 weeks later, people were coming back and going, I did exactly what you told me to do. I used the form you gave me, right? We did working session. And now I have a working ISA department that's booking, 10 appointments a week or whatever it is. That kind of stuff is the only thing that makes an impact nowadays because there's more than enough information out there.
Yep, that's for sure. So yeah, that's awesome. So going back to, and we'll get into some personal stuff here in a minute because I know you've had
Mhm.
an evolution there personally as well, right? You live on a ranch now, all kinds of
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
going on there. But kind of staying on the business theme here for a minute. So I met you, had to be around 2019, 20, yeah, it was
September 2019.
yeah, yep. That makes sense now. I was trying to think of we used COVID almost as like a landmark, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I had joined EXP after COVID. So it was
You weren't
before
wearing
that.
a mask. All right. So now
Yeah.
we're
Yeah. So September 2019, I met you and we're in this room. So I know that you love to learn. I know that you're constantly a student, while I think you're definitely one of the gurus and one of the top operators in the industry. Um, you're still always looking at moving yourself forward. And then when you're moving yourself forward, what was amazing, to me when I first met you, and we kind of, there's those people that you vibe with, and where I felt like I vibed with you right away, was just your level of contribution. So in the room, cool, we're listening to a bunch of speakers, maybe we chit chatted a little bit, but it was a couple days later, because we all know that John Cheplek has this fun thing that he does around his masterminds with these treacherous hikes, that we went out to Zion and hiked Angel's Landing, which, for those of you that don't know it, look it up. I probably said this on another podcast, but check it out. It's a really crazy, scary hike, and Isaac could tell his story about that again.
oh yeah.
But throughout that hike, we were kind of not physically tethered to each other, but we were walking in lockstep, and you were just literally, you talked about the playbook earlier. You were opening the playbook for me. And it was with nothing, with no ask in return. You didn't at one point, I don't even know if I knew you were with EXP at that point.
Mm,
You were just coming from contribution. You were, pouring into somebody I think that you thought was a decent person. And obviously we're doing business now. So,
yeah.
uh, but Yeah, and I could just tell the character, that you are, the character that you have, what your belief system is. So can you kind of open that up a little bit? Open the door about, how you make the world a better place, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, although not easy, right? And what I mean by that is, it was a matter of just sharing what it is that I knew and how to do it. And the where that the place that comes from is I got so many hands up, right? I had so many mentors that for no other reason other than I was just willing to show up, I got poured into. So it's kind of the byproduct of I didn't know any different. I didn't know that there was this like, hey, I'm going to try to get all I can all I get, and then sit on the can mentality because I had never experienced that, right? People had just given it. Now, don't get me wrong, I had had unique instances with what I considered like um, just your average agent. There's nothing wrong with being an average agent, by the way, but they weren't high level people. So it was really weird that the average agent was unwilling to share the one or two things that worked in their business, right? And then the really successful people, they didn't care at all. They would share everything, right? Hey, yeah, for sure, I'll share this idea, this thought. So that's kind of, I think, in a way, it was me also separating myself and at least if only in my mind, right? Separating myself from being average, which is in other words, I learned early on, average people don't share, high level people do, right? Successful people share whatever you ask them, they're willing to help. Now, it doesn't mean they have infinite time to answer your questions. Doesn't mean they have all, they're going to give you every resource that you're looking for to help you bridge that gap, but they're never going to go, oh, I can't share that. I can't talk about that. So for me, I think there was part of it that was there, and then the culture I was just in and around in that particular group. Chep even has a saying all the time. He says, "What is it? Collaboration gets you in the room. Contribution keeps you in the room." Right? You've seen a bunch of people wash in and out of that group of people, and the people that stay are people that say, "I'm open. I'll open my playbook for people." So yeah, I think that's kind of where that all came from. I was me a little bit separating myself again, if only in my own mind. And then also that environment was so conducive to it, where it's hard not to do that. Right.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So let's kind of take it down to who you are,
Yeah.
just as a person. I know you pretty well. I know you're a great family man. I follow you on Insta, let alone talking to you. And you know, overall, you have an admirable life. So talk
Thanks,
a
man.
little bit about, what
Yeah.
makes you tick.
I am 11 years into my marriage to my beautiful wife. I have two small boys, ages 8 and 6 now. They just both turned that last. They're both January babies, so they both just turned those ages. They're hilarious. We loved. I grew up as an athlete. Um, you guys can't tell. I'm a very short, stocky Mexican dude. So although basketball is my favorite sport of all time, I was not built for that. I was built for wrestling. So I grew up wrestling, and I played every sport, but wrestling was my thing. Got into MMA. That's where I met my now wife. I was running a gym here in San Diego. Was thought I was going to be the next UFC champ. And although I wasn't bad at it, I also wanted more. Right.
So what you're saying is don't mess with you. You might look like you're all cuddly, but you mess with you and you're probably gonna get taken down and submitted.
You're at least not gonna you're not gonna walk away and go, "That was a good idea." Right? Like, it's funny, that's what I teach my sons all the time. I'm not a violent person. As a matter of fact, the more you get into combat sports, the less likely you are to get into a street fight, is what
Yep.
I've noticed with all my buddies, right? I still have buddies that still compete to this day. And but what I do teach my kids is like, "Hey, listen, you're not gonna win every fight. Don't even think you're gonna win every fight. But you need to make sure that when they walk away, they go, 'That was a bad choice. That was a bad choice to start that fight.'" Right? So that's kind of where I've always thought. But yeah, and so the thing for me is I'm really big on getting mentored, right? And I've had too many mentors tell me, I wish I would have blank, right? And one of and by the way, I've done 1,000 of those things too. Right? There's
Mhm.
so many that I look at my younger brother, he's 23, he's got his real estate license, right? Like, I wish I would have blank. I have 1,000 of those. But the one that's consistent amongst all of them is I wish I would have spent more time with my kids or like whatever during those formative years, right? When they were little dudes. And so I've been like extremely protective of that. Like anybody that gets in business with me knows you know this. I'm like, hey, the kids don't come first during business hours, but I do structure my business hours to make sure I spend time with my kids. Right. So once in a while, a kid will walk in the office while we're shooting on on a Zoom or whatever. But like, for example, I went to Chet Black's Tahoe event like I do most years. I took my whole family. Like, if I'm going to be gone, I was traveling, whatever. I had just gotten back from some other trip with them, Sedona. And I was like, you know what? I got points on my card. Let's take you guys. We homeschool our kids. Um, we live on a 10-acre ranch, so it's not this huge ranch, but it is big, especially considering San Diego County is most people don't even know there's such thing as 10 acres
Yeah, but I
out
wouldn't have
here.
thought it until you told me you
Yeah.
were buying it.
Yeah. So, and we got goats and sheep. And as a matter of fact, we just had 2 baby lambs this last month, and we got some pregnant goats, so that'll be growing. We got chickens, so obviously, there's not a day that goes by where I don't get that meme of like Tony Montana sitting at his desk with a bunch of egg cartons, right? You guys know that one. Remember during COVID, it was toilet paper.
Yeah.
Now it's egg cartons, but I get
Okay.
that meme every day from somebody like, "Hey, dude, you must be balling right now,"
So
because I
you're
don't buy
so you're
eggs.
yeah, I was gonna say, so your rev share goes a lot further than most of ours because we're spending it on eggs.
Yes,
You're like, "I
exactly.
got that part covered."
Yeah, I'm like, "Hey, son, like, those 8 eggs we ate this morning? People pay like $10 for that, dude."
Yeah.
So, yeah. Uh, but
Very
yeah,
cool.
I mean, that's the thing is I've built my life to do that. I had a goal in 2020. I remember it was like COVID lockdowns had just started, and I remember I was sitting there doing a workout, and in between workouts or in between exercises on my rest break, I was writing out what I wanted to accomplish by 2026, and one of them was a 6 acre or more ranch where I can live off, where I can offset 50% of my grocery bill with stuff that I grow or raise there on my ranch. And I think I have the ranch now. I think by the end of 2026, I can actually get to 50%. So it was something where I wrote it down, I visualized it. It's still part of my vision, right? I look at my ranch now and I go, here's what I want it to look like. Um, so yeah, I'm cheesy as heck, dude. I'm down to make vision boards and do all that fun stuff and visualize. It works.
Yep. Awesome. So let's move back into some of the business stuff and talk about, so we got to know who you are, what the genesis of Isaac was.
Mhm,
I know you got into the coaching space. You were an absolute instrumental piece of running, one of, if not the top team in San Diego for some time. But then you transitioned. You decided to go on your own. I know you've started a team in San Diego, and you're kind of a big vocal mouthpiece now for LPT as well. And I know this is a brokerage agnostic podcast, but would
mhm.
still love to hear kind of the thoughts that went through your head about the more recent moves that you've made.
Yeah, so on the brokerage side, it was really simple. When I decided to launch a new team, a buddy of mine from my old team, he had left. We had left separately, like 2 different times. Didn't even have conversations about it. But by the time he had left, he was like, "Hey, man, will you coach me? I'm going to start a team." And I said, "I'll do you one better." I was thinking about starting a team too. I've known him for years. I love him to death. Like he's like a brother to me. We've gone on vacations together and stuff. So it wasn't like this random person. And so I said, let's just partner up. And so we decided to launch that team. And when looking, and so this is kind of both of them combined, when we looked at the landscape, there were some challenges that I ran into because I was no longer, and if you don't know these terms, you'll still follow along. I was no longer a mega agent icon team, right? Based on my size and production, because I had been out of production,
Mhm.
right? And so I couldn't qualify for that. So that put me in an economic situation in terms of what my agent splits would be, to where I was like, well, maybe I should just look at other options. I had zero intention of doing it, by the way, of making a move from EXP. But I just said, well, what are my other options? And I started looking. I interviewed like probably one of the best humans if you're considering other brokerages is a guy named Dean Aguilar. He's at Real. I mean, dude, such a cool guy. So very transparent, vulnerable, like good dude. Him and his wife Aphrodite are amazing human beings. Talk with them about that option. And then I saw a bunch of people though, mostly on the East Coast, but a couple people in your state, Nevada, moving over to
Mhm.
LPT. And so I was like, okay, what is this about? Especially because one of the guys that I called reached out to, it made no sense on paper for him to move. Like he left EXP to go to LPT. And I was like, dude, like I know how many people you have in your downline. You're number one in the entire state. Like, what's going on? Why the heck would you make this move? So when we started looking at it, it just made sense for me to structure the team. And the reason why, and this also goes into the team section, is because I believe that there are different versions or different evolutions that teams go through. And I think the most evolved team, which by the way, if I'm not saying one's better than the other, by the way, there's actually a really good case for like the team I'm trying to build is not a great fit for every agent. Not everybody should follow this model, but
Absolutely.
it's there's different evolutions of a team. And what I really wanted to focus on was becoming an incubation center for future independent solo agents that dominate or even team leaders, right? I think that there's a lot of teams available in the marketplace to help an agent sell real estate on a team platform. I don't know that there's a lot. In other words, I wouldn't be fulfilling a specific need. I would just be entering into the marketplace to compete with other people. And like as much as I'm okay with that, and I've done it for years, and I think I'm really good at it, as evidenced by our growth and every model I've been in. Um, I don't see as many places that are building up the next team leaders, that are building up the next solo agents that have like a killer admin team, right? And the main reason why is because, and actually, like I can say this openly in front of you and even our other partner Sanit, right? Is that you guys are very much like this too, and that a lot of teams just kind of go, hey, here's the box that you fit in as a buyer's agent. You take these leads and like run with it. And I'm not going to spend any time or energy or effort creating a way for you to get off of that track. Right. And by the way, uh, 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 I perpetuated that, right? My whole career. So don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm fun or somehow smarter or better or more altruistic. It's just like now I see an opportunity in the marketplace where it's like, hey, come here. And so we created this, the vision from it came from a program that we created, which is called 0 to 60 for the team. So it's kind of a take on cars, right? My business partner is a car guy. I know you're a car guy.
Right.
I'm not. If you ever see what I drive, I'm not a car guy. Right? I just drive like a run of the mill Acura. I'm a big Honda and Toyota guy just because their parts are cheap and they're easy to fix. Um, so, anyways, but 0 to 60, and our whole goal is this: what if we can create a world where someone could come in with zero transactions and by their 60th closing could easily just launch them on their own? Now, it might happen on the 37th deal. It might happen. It might take them till the 89th deal. But the point is, we are having a path, a progression to say you don't need us anymore. And what I think that does is two things. It attracts a different type of agent, and then in addition to that, it actually puts, and this is a big part of it, it puts the pressure on us to evolve the team to the place where Ty, who's on our team, gets to his 60th transaction, has zero need for us, but yet
Mhm.
chooses to stay.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a big thing because in a lot of team structures, it's like, well, the way that I've structured the team is that when you leave, you're essentially starting from ground zero. Yes, you have money in the bank. Yes, you have past clients, but in terms of do you have do you understand marketing? Do you understand conversion at the highest level? Or do you have systems set up? No, you start from the scratch, right? Now you're like, oh, which CRM should I use? Should I use Follow Up Boss like my team used to, or does it make more? Well, we want to help you answer those questions inside our system.
Mhm.
Our splits are going to be the same as every other team. The difference is, hey, what else? What other information are you getting access to? And so the reason I easily talk about this in front of you is because I see the training you put out for your agents, and it's not here's how you convert my leads. Now you do teach them that because hey, they want to make money and you got to make a return on your investment, right? We're not in this isn't a charity, right? Thing, but I've also seen you really dig in and help your agents understand at a fundamental level what's happening in the real estate business and how they can execute it on their side. What I've also learned in seeing you do that, because I think you've actually been doing it longer than I have in terms of like, hey, I'm just going to open up everything for you, and teach you guys everything and the fundamental way of running a business. What I've also seen is like, hey, not everybody actually takes advantage of those things, and they end up becoming a lifer on the team. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
And the thing is, if you pull back the curtain on that, Isaac, I mean, it's a really good point, right? Because if you're teaching the fundamentals, yes, they could go and, switch from on the team to own the team, right? Just add a letter and and they could go and do that, or they can look and realize the value that their team is providing and realize that if they went to do it on their own, let's say as a solo agent, but maintaining 35, 40, 50 deals, because I think solo agents could easily do, 4 or 8 deals without needing any sort of assistance because they could be that jack of all trades, master of none, right? But for the doctor to continue making $500 an hour in revenue into their practice, he or she has to do the doctoring. They're not taking the vitals. They're not inputting your paperwork from the clipboard into the computer. They're not calling and verifying your insurance coverage, right? They have
Yeah.
people that are going to do that, and that's ultimately my belief as to what a team should be providing. A team really shouldn't be making money off of the agents. A team should be giving the agents the opportunity to make money, and they then get paid as part of their split. I wish splits weren't actually a thing. I wish it was more of, hey, this is your overhead in order to run the business properly. And guess what? You don't even have to do it. You could be hands off. I mean, imagine if a doctor really could just doctor and their office manager actually managed the business. Sometimes they do, but oftentimes they don't, right? They're hired
Yeah.
for, certain tasks. So we get to manage that, stay cutting edge on technology and CRMs, and we'll make those shifts because something better comes out. So yeah, I hear you loud and clear on that. I think it's
Well,
it's a really
I-
important piece.
I'll say one last thing because I think it bears exposing. You kind of exposed me, dude, right now by saying that. And here's what I mean by that. The higher level way of thinking and why we came up with this too. Like what I gave you, and I'm just gonna be super vulnerable on the podcast. What I gave you was the pitch, right? Why would I want to build that? Well, here's why. How many times do team leaders go out, they build this team, they start the team, and then they build up top producers, and the top producer goes, I got it. I'm going to strike out on my own. And then they take off, right? And then they get their teeth kicked in, right? Because they didn't know, what does it take to build a system? How much overhead do you really have to deal with, right? What does it look like to hire an assistant? By the way, you're hiring them, you're training them, you're holding them accountable, you're giving them performance improvement plans, then you're firing them, then you're going and running ads, and then you're running interviews, and then you're talking about compensation. And then, oh, dude, that's ridiculous. That's exhausting. I can't believe that we sign up to do that crap, right? It's kind of annoying. And we're kind of suckers for doing it. But, anyways, I'm already here, so I got to keep going. But here's the reality. The problem is this. Most of those agents, I've talked to them. I've sat there and been with my buddy Nate one time when he broke it down for me. But the problem is this. They realize it. They go, this was a bad idea. But because of ego and pride, and possibly because of how we handle it as team leaders when they leave, they don't come back. They end up going to another team
Yep.
or they fail out of the business. But the ones that stay in, I would well over half that leave out to strike on their own end up on somebody else's team because pride, ego, or the way that we handle their offboarding, right? All I'm trying to do is overwhelm and expose them to that chaos that they probably don't want to deal with while they're still inside my walls. That's
Mhm.
actually the main reason we do it. I want you to know that the grass is not greener when you go out there. It is fantastically green here. And by the way, if you ever do end up being one of those like 30 to 40% of people that will strike out and actually make it on your own, great. You have an affinity for me, and you're probably, I mean, let's just be real, I have a revenue share downline that I care very much about. You'll probably stay in the downline too.
Mhm.
So my thing is, I'd rather have you learn those tough lessons inside my four walls so that you don't have to tuck tail and come back because you probably won't. You'll probably just go to one of my competitors. Just full disclosure on that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So as we wrap up the podcast, we've got a few more minutes left here. Um, what are I'm going to go solo agents first.
Yeah.
What are since we're all about actionable data, right? We're in 2025. Our interest rates are still what many people consider to be high just because they got so spoiled by the low rates. And especially if you're, only 5 years or so in the business, you've gotten spoiled. Uh, so I'd say that these rates are fairly normal, but if we're
Right.
considering them high, if the public's perception of them is high, what are the top three things that you think an agent should be doing right now as a solo agent in order to make sure that 2025 is going to be a great year for them?
Yeah. So first thing is, if you haven't already, but I'm assuming that you already have your database put together. The first thing you got to do is segment it, is further segment your database. 100% you got to do it. And what do I mean by that? Get more insight into the groups of people that you have inside your database. Figure out what groupings you can put together. So are there, obviously, if you haven't done this, like sellers and buyers, right? Those should have separate campaigns. This might be news to somebody, right? Like I get that you have a monthly market snapshot or home value report that goes out to sellers and saved searches that go out to buyers. Like I totally get that. But what else? What education are you giving sellers that's different from buyers? Or are you just getting everybody the 17 things to do in San Diego this month email? Because if that's true, awesome. You like, here's what I mean. If you're already doing like low level, but it's consistent, this is actually an easy thing. You go through and you go, who are the sellers? Who are the buyers? Who are the people that live in this type of house and this type of house? Who prioritize that? So here's a good example, like that one that we're actually working on right now is school districts. Who are people that are in these like top 5 school districts in the state? Because a lot of them are here in San Diego County. Top school districts like Poway School District, Poway Unified School District, for example. It's a really sought after school district. Okay, cool. What about homeowners in that area can we be specific about? Right. And how can we target them with events and information? Right. So there's that. The second thing I
Oh,
think you got to be
and
doing.
really quick, Isaac, before you move on to the second one, because you said something there that was really key, and I want to make sure that all of, especially the solo agents that don't have team support behind them, they're really hearing it because what you didn't detail out is, aside from segmenting, that the emails, the text messages are coming from value and they're specific to something. So it's not what you get. I love Follow Up Boss, by the way. I'm a huge Follow Up Boss user. But the canned packages, the canned action plans that are in there, right? Those don't say that, right? Those are all sales based. Those are, hey, saw you looking at some homes, or they're just, campaign based where they're going to go out for the next 3 years, still considering buying a home in X area, right? So
Mm,
you're talking about something more specific that I think a lot of agents actually don't do at all. Probably
yeah.
the large majority, 90% plus, don't do. So before we move on to number two, I just want you to kind of hit on that of, what are those touches? How many should they be doing? And what I think a lot of agents struggle with is I've run out of ideas. I'm not sure what to do. So what would you give them in that? Is it Chat GPT, or maybe just follow three of your favorite agents, right? Sorry, I'm feeding you ideas here,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah,
give
absolutely.
me what you would tell that agent.
So here's one thing for sure. You have to do a separate market update for them. That's what we decided on as well. Is I give a market update to everybody who owns a home and market update to everybody who's thinking about buying a home. The reason why is because I'm going to present different stats based on what I call creating a winnable game. I don't want to tell a buyer, hey, it's a great time to buy because you have more inventory, blah, 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 and you have more bargaining power and there's, more competition and meaning there's more listings. So that can drive down prices. Like you wouldn't do that at a table when you knew that your seller was sitting right next to you. Like you had a listing, right? You're at a dinner table, you have a listing, your seller came to that event, and you're over here telling the buyer, oh, it's a great time. We can get over on sellers. We can negotiate more. You would never do that in front of your seller. Why are you doing that to your database? Right. And so segment that out. And I'm not saying lie to anybody, but what I am saying is there's certain stats that present better for buyers than they do for sellers and vice versa. So like If that exists and it's already true and none of it's a lie, then you should use that to your advantage. I'm sorry,
Well,
it's
because
just the way it is.
and if you think about it like this, like you mentioned earlier, I'm a car guy, right? So as a car guy, I'm a sports car guy,
Mhm.
right? And I'm a muscle car and exotic guy. So give me a classic, Camaro or GTO. I'm actually Pontiac all the way. So I said Camaro first. I love them, but I'll take a GTO or a Firebird all day long. Or some exotics. I just, I'm still always mystified. I've never owned one, but the Ferraris and Salines and Paganis, things like that. I think they're just awesome. Um, that said, in that segmenting, and the stats, if somebody's coming at me with overall car market details and they're talking about what 4x4 trucks are hot and, the long range on the EV Denali of 650, mile range because it's got this humongous battery, right? Like they're going to lose me
Yep.
because I'm not in that mindset. So if you're doing this market update that's a 10-minute market update and you're going over stats that are more important to a seller, you might lose the buyers and vice versa.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is this, and by the way, like this is teams and solo agents. The other thing I would say is build a team and not what you think. So solo agent, build a team, but make your team doesn't have to be agents. You need to be in link with your lender. You need to be in link with other people who understand what's happening because the insurance world is changing all the time, right? Like that's an important part. The mortgage world is changing all the time. And not only that, but they have education that your clients need. So here's what I would also say is the other thing you got to do is start doing educational events, whether they're in person or online. Webinars are great. We actually have one on our YouTube channel, right? How to use webinars to generate leads when you sleep. And so here's the reality, though, is that those people, those teams, and they explain stuff that it might be hard for you. You want to help have them explain things, do educational series, right? Like here's a good example. Financial planners and asset managers, right? They get paid off of what? How many assets they have under management. They collect fees based on that balance. Well, when somebody wants to pull money out of that account to go buy a house, do you think asset managers are excited about that? No, they're absolutely not excited about that. I guarantee you there's deals that have blown up in all of our faces and we didn't know, but there was some financial planner or asset manager behind that,
Mhm.
right? At least one in your career, every single person,
Oh
probably
yeah.
one a year, depending on your volume. What if you could help them understand that using something like I just learned this is why I'm excited about it. Using something like a reverse mortgage can help them help people in their retirement years what by drawing down this account, you draw down this other one that they have under management slower. So now all of a sudden we have asset managers that want to help people buy with reverse mortgages because what it effectively does is helps their client get what they want without drawing down their assets under management. So their fees stay up. Like, dude, that's wild that I
Yep.
never did that and thought about that. So the
So
last piece I would say is this then
educate with the power partners so that way you become the authority and the go-to person on the thing that
borrow.
you do really well.
Yeah, you get to borrow their authority in their
Love it.
areas. You get to just borrow their authority. It's huge.
Okay, what's number 3 for you?
All right, number 3 is absolutely going to be understanding, and it probably could have been number 2 because it piggybacks on what I said at the beginning and also what you said, but it's understanding this. There's a difference between conversion language and contribution language. Everything, go ahead, learn how to sell real estate. All you're going to learn about from really great people. We're talking the Ricky Caruths, the Brandon Merlins, all those people, right? They're really good at teaching you conversion language, right? So earlier you said all the like campaigns or smart plans. There you go, smart plans or action plans inside of CRMs that come in. They're all conversion based. Hey, you still interested in buying? You still thinking about buying? You still thinking about buying? That's conversion language. Every script you've ever used, how to handle objections, how to use an opener, how to book an appointment. Would you prefer 2:30 or 5:30, right? Whatever those are all conversion based conversations. What you have to realize is there's roughly 5% of the population that is in conversion based zone, is in your conversion arena, right? So what does
Yeah.
that mean? The other 95% are looking for contribution. So what you need to figure out is, once you segment your database, is what does contribution mean for that group of people? And what I will tell you, the actionable more step is this: contribution, this is how you need to define it. It is making the audience aware of two things: their or the real estate market and their community. When you are making people aware of the real estate market and their community, you end up, that's the highest form of contribution. They don't care about recipes, they don't care about most of the things that you send them. But if you make them aware of what's happening in their local community, right? And by the way, that doesn't mean just geography. It might mean dog lovers, right? It might mean car enthusiasts. It might mean ranchers of small ranches, whatever that is. Tell me, help me understand my community better,
Yeah,
right? And
for
in
sure.
addition to that, help me understand the real estate market better and how it relates to me. So the cool thing is you actually have all those tools. You have monthly market updates. You have the flyer that says 12 things to do in San Diego for families for free in February. You have all that, but do you know that you should be deploying it to this group of people as opposed to this group of people? And then
Mhm.
are you, then this is the second part of that, like part B of that, is do you also have the mechanism set up to catch when those people demonstrate it's time to have a conversion based conversation? Are you watching to make sure that Sandy, who was in your database from an open house 238 days ago, who's never opened one of your emails ever, finally opened her email, looked at 16 houses on Friday night, favorited four and shared two? Like, do you have systems set up to go, oh my God, I got to call Sandy? Right? I've been contributing to Sandy for 238 days using contribution language, using all these things. All right, cool. Now it's time for conversion based conversations with Sandy. The problem is you're burning out your database with conversion based conversations with people that you should be contributing to. And then you don't have the system set up to trigger when you should switch from contribution to conversion on an individual basis. We call those DBHR, database hand raisers. Those are my favorite. They give us what we call shoulder tap deals. Hey, remember me? Oh, yeah, I kind of forgot you existed. You ready to buy? Great. Like, that's what we got to do.
And
If you
the
don't do
only
anything
re
else in 2025, that's it.
Yeah, and the only way that you were able to forget that they existed was because you are coming from contribution so much and pouring it into everybody, but
Yep.
they believe that you're speaking to just them.
100%.
And then they're only thinking of you. You're the top of mind person when it comes to anything real estate. So when they do raise their hands, when they are ready, you're the only one that's consistently been there, even though they visited 4 or 5 websites to begin with. So
Yes,
that's
sir.
brilliant, Isaac. So thank you. So we're going to wrap up here. So for those of you that are enjoying this podcast, we're going to have on some of the top, most powerful guests that you could imagine that are going to, the what we're going to be, saying to them in order to qualify them coming on is what items can you give right now, whether that means that there's collateral with it, worksheets or workbooks, or it's just the verbal delivery of it. What can you give to our audience right now that they could take away and go put into action and make that a better open house? Get somebody out of their database who is on the fence and get them to actually convert. What's going to actually drive dollars to our audience's pocket by actions that they could take right when they get off this podcast? So,
100%.
hope you're already loving this and you're going to come back for many more. Please join the Agent War Room community. Just go to agentwarroom.com, click the join button. We have a ton of free assets there that we're deploying, and it's going to only get bigger and better, where we're literally going to be giving away funnels and action plans, just things that you could do and deploy right into your business. So that's what we're all about. So you could go there right now and then tag us on social if you're listening. We'd love to hear your feedback and any comments you have. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.